Your evolution is going to require you to face yourself repeatedly. Are you ready for that challenge? If you're a CEO, entrepreneur, or leader going through a transition phase right now, this video is for you. Life was too good. Life was really good, and that became the problem. Today I want to share a story with you guys because this is something that I went through, something that happened to me, and I think by sharing this story, it's going to get the word out about the tools that I got to use in order to get to where I am today, and I hope that maybe some of them can serve you too. And so life was too good. And when I say life was too good, that meant that things were too comfortable. And the more comfortable that things were just years ago, the more upset that I would get because I felt as if I wasn't using my full potential. I wasn't feeling uncomfortable. I wasn't pushing myself to grow, and that there was so much energy being left on the table. And so that obviously caused me to make a change. And I could have just stayed where I was and, stayed with the comfortable and leaned into the experience and enjoyed it because life was good. Life was really good. If you've ever been in a moment of your life where you're like, wow, everything is great. It looks good. It feels good. I wake up every day. I live in a place I love. I'm surrounded by people that I love. Maybe you even do what you love, but there's just something inside of you, or something inside of me rather, in this story that was telling me, Lacey, there's more. Lacey, tap into whatever's coming next because this is not the end. This is not it. And by doing that, by trusting my intuition and looking deeper into what that voice was even talking about, I discovered NLP. And by discovering NLP, that totally and completely changed my life. That was a huge moment and a huge year of transition for me. And this is the story that I want to share with you guys today. And so why is NLP such a huge part of my life? Because during those couple of years ago, when I decided, okay, things are too comfortable, I feel way too good. I had just met the love of my life, was living on the beach in Spain, working a couple of different jobs, but I actually liked those jobs and I was able to pour myself into them and still have tons of time to do whatever I wanted. There was definitely a work-life balance there and everything was awesome. But there was that nagging voice inside of me, that feeling in my gut and my heart that was like, wait a second, this can't be it. There's something more inside. And I started staying in more and going out less. And what did that happen? I lost friends. Of course, I lost friends because I stopped following. I realized I'm following more than I'm leading. And if I'm the leader of my life, then that means I get to step up and actually take action, make the decisions, and not just follow the crowd. And I had felt myself going for a while with what everyone else wanted to do, what everyone else thought was cool or was trending. And Spain is a very social culture, so I felt myself going out very often, yet compromising my sleep because I was still training people, waking up in the morning, going to parks, hosting Zumba classes, doing events, music jams, and I was not taking the best care of my body. And in that moment, I was like, okay, I have a decision here to make. I can continue, I can stay comfortable, I can live this experience and really just enjoy it, but lose myself in the process, or I can stop what I'm doing, dare to get uncomfortable, and dare to start leading my own life. And obviously I chose option number 2, which sacrificed me lots of opportunities with friends, going out, socializing. But in the end, I ended up discovering NLP. And why is NLP such an important part of my life? Because, I had over 10 different years on and off an eating disorder. And when I stopped going out, when I stopped following the crowd, I started to pour into myself. And a lot of people will call this, your awakening. You start your personal development journey, you start reading, you start learning, you start taking all those tools and putting them onto yourself, applying it to yourself first, practicing what you preach. And that's when I truly felt like I woke up and I connected to myself. I learned different tools, and it all started with a book. I read one book, and it was called The Little Book of Big Change, and I can list it here on the podcast. And then I read another book all about NLP by Richard Bandler and John Grinder, and that book really opened my eyes. Those two books together made me realize that it's not about eliminating the things inside of us necessarily that we don't like and then punishing ourselves or feeling bad about ourselves for those things that we don't want to have, whether it's a limiting belief or some kind of a doubt that creeps up or a past experience. It's about releasing that emotion and giving the brain other options. And so when I discovered NLP, I actually took it into my own hands to take the tools from NLP, apply them to myself, and then to keep learning more, and learning more. And by doing that and not following the crowd, I actually saved myself from over 10 years of this eating disorder on and off. And I had told really no one about it because I thought, I can figure this out on my own. I'm capable. But it was the same repeating pattern year after year after year. Sometimes better, sometimes worse. The details aren't important. But what is important is that I chose to make a change, and NLP is what gave me those tools to make the change. And so when I started to read and I started to pour into myself, obviously I went out less. My social life really, really struggled, and I lost a lot of friends. I lost students in my classes because I raised my prices. I remember realizing I have a lot of value. And I think we all go through moments like this where we're like, wait a second, why am I doing this for free? Why am I pouring into others' cups nonstop without pouring into my own at least at the same time, or if not first? And I realized, okay, I do have some value here and I do give a lot away. Let's pour into myself, which, raised some of my prices for my classes that I was doing. It changed my group of friends in which I went out with. It changed the type of people that I wanted to go out with and the atmosphere that I wanted to be surrounded by. I realized how important it is to surround yourself not only with people, but the environments that serve you and your body, your brain. Your mind is absorbing everything all the time. The subconscious is incredible. 95% is in the subconscious. So you might not even realize that you know it, but it's stored inside of you somehow. And so the more that I learned about NLP, the more that I poured into myself, learning how my mind worked and realizing, okay, I'm going to actually begin to filter, and I'm going to be intentional about how I filter, because I want the best for me so that I can give my best to everyone else. Because there's, the saying, if you get on the airplane, you have to put your air mask on first before you put others on. You can't save someone if you can't save yourself. And that's a lesson that people, they talk about it. There's different games about it, activities, but until you actually come to a point in your life where you have to decide, okay, it's them or me. Who am I going to choose? Because at the end of the day, we are our longest relationships. We have to pour into ourselves first if we want to then pour into others. And so that whole year, this is a couple years back now, but that entire year, I really focused and dialed down on myself. And at the time, there was so much resistance and there was back and forth. And I wondered, am I doing the right thing? I had this huge group of friends and they were so wonderful, and they are wonderful people. But I remember being like, okay, I'm doing this for myself. For the first time in my life, I'm actually going to do what I want when it came to personal development and pouring into myself and thinking of the future, not just in the moment, not just, okay, the next tapa that we're going to go have or the next country we're going to go travel to this upcoming weekend. I was thinking long term. I was thinking big picture, big vision. And when I found those tools of NLP that got rid of my eating disorder and helped me take control over my emotions, where I put my energy, how I focused in and dialed down on my vision, I knew there was potential there. And I knew I had so much more potential myself. And I started to grow and explore and expand. I did some trainings, I did some courses, I started to apply it to my classes. Just little things, even like, okay, how can we add gratitude to our day before we start a Zumba class? How can we step into our power when we're doing a kickboxing class and really find the energy from within? So many people think that physical exercise is just the exercise element, but it's so much more. It's your mindset, it's your heart, it's your soul. That's why certain types of exercises aren't going to work for everyone. It depends on what your soul wants. And so using these tools helped me really connect the dots on that and ultimately pour into myself, which up-leveled and elevated my potential. And next, I'm gonna tell you guys a little bit more about how I did it. Go ahead and give us a like and subscribe to the channel to get more on this adventure and this journey, all the tools that we're gonna be dropping and sharing. We'd love to have you part of the community. And ultimately, this is kind of how it went. This is about 3, 4, 5 years ago now. And so when I stopped following the crowd and started questioning myself, okay, Lacey, why do you not have new problems? And if I don't have new problems, then I'm not experiencing new things. And I realized that problems are actually something to celebrate when they're new problems, because that means you're progressing and evolving. I started questioning myself, why am I not being challenged? Why do I feel stagnant and stuck when everything looks so good and I'm so happy within? And when I started questioning myself, that's when answers started coming, because I started really listening. And by really listening, that meant I cut out the noise. I cut out the distractions. I cut out things that not necessarily were bad things, but they just didn't serve me and my journey and where I was at the moment. And so by doing so, like I said, I poured into myself. How I really did this was deep diving into NLP, reading books, taking courses, studying, and then, like I say, practice what you preach. I had to first practice what I was going to be preaching, because otherwise I would have no credibility about it. I wanted to take the tools that I learned, apply them to my life, apply them to myself, see how they worked, see how I reacted to them, and then see where they took me, because ultimately I wanted to have that experience before speaking on behalf of them. And when I started to do that, I started to gain a huge sense of self-awareness, which, if you know a little bit about emotional intelligence, that's one of the key pillars of emotional intelligence. I started to really, really, really wake up to my own thoughts, my own feelings, my own actions and reactions to certain situations. And that's when I really started to hone in that inner dialogue. I realized during those years, during those months, that your inner dialogue is so important. And guess who's controlling that? Yourself. I get to control mine, you get to control yours. And that's when I really started to take control and be like, okay, these thoughts right here, they don't serve me. So why are they still filtering through every single day on repeat? And I started to get rid of them. I got rid of them, threw them in the basura, in the trash, because they were not serving me. I started to apply tools to keep them gone and to give myself other options, because why am I focusing on the negative? A lot of times I find myself from the past focusing on the negative when in reality, what I want is over here. And so shifting my focus from what I don't want and what I'm fearful of happening to what I actually do want had me face myself a lot, had me overcome challenges and be really uncomfortable. But I realized the more uncomfortable that I got, the more expansive my vision became, the more growth and the more area and space that I allowed myself to just take up and to dive into and to feel like, okay, this is what I wanted. This is the challenge. This is the new dialogue that actually supports me and who wants me to be uncomfortable, because when you're uncomfortable, it told me this is where expansion lives. Expansion in the unknown, it's out there. It's not something that we have in the palm of our hands. It's not like a familiar friend or a familiar face. It's going to be surprise. It's going to be the unknown. It's going to be unexpected. And the more I leaned into those questions and into those experiences, the more I found out about myself. And I always say, connection is reflection. The more that I began to reflect on myself, the deeper the connection I grew with myself became. And that over time just began to evolve and evolve and evolve. It began to pour into my events. It began to pour into the different things that I would do for retreats, for coaching, for working with groups of people or one-on-one. And I'm like, okay, connection, this is very important here. And so by taking those tools, by reading those books, ultimately what happened, I got way closer with myself. And like I mentioned before, we are our longest relationships. Relationships is also another pillar of emotional intelligence. So that self-awareness, kind of waking up to, okay, what are my thoughts, Lacey? What are your feelings and your emotions? How do you react to certain situations? And is that under your control? Can you change that so that it serves you better? And I started having these conversations with myself. And if you live alone, you probably have talked out loud to yourself. And during that time, I was living alone. So I was talking out loud to myself a lot. And I remember thinking, I am a crazy person for speaking out loud to myself. But then I realized this is just part of the process. And if you have a tendency to speak out loud, good, do it. This is the way that our brain processes information. And so for me, it helped a ton. And this wasn't part of the plan living alone. I was actually supposed to be living with Yvonne at the moment, but things happened. He was playing professional soccer in another country. I ended up being by myself, and I thought, okay, I'm going to use this as a tool for self-discovery and for connection. And what it did was bring me way closer to myself, like I mentioned before. And that brought me even closer to the vision that we're doing right now. And this is years behind and now years down the road. So it's just incredible what can happen when you start to pour into yourself. And by taking up that book, taking up those courses, starting to apply the tools of NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, to myself, it transformed my entire life. It shaped my reality. It shaped, okay, my vision for where I'm going to go, who I'm going to be, and how I'm going to conduct myself day in and day out. It created discipline in my life. It created a new sense of fulfillment. Not coming from a space of punishment, like I have to do this, I must do this, or I should do this, but I get to do this. I get to do this because this is who I am. This is who I'm going to be, and this is what I'm going to create. And when you have that kind of inner dialogue, you have that mindset, you feel it full body. It's not just here, it's all the way here. It's in your heart, it's in your body. Your actions are reflections of that. And ultimately, that's identity work. You shift who you are. And I know during that year specifically, when I started to pour into myself, utilizing those different skills and tools from NLP, I shifted my identity a ton. And it's been ever evolving every single year from a couple years ago all the way to now. And I think it's going to keep progressing, keep evolving, keep continuing, because that's the power of learning tools and applying them to yourself. You get to experience it first. One of the techniques that I remember using all those years ago was parts integration. And if you have studied NLP or you've heard of parts integration, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. But ultimately, if you don't, what it is having a conversation with yourself and with the parts of you that are in conflict. And to break that down, chunk that down even more, all of us have had a conversation either internally or externally where you say, part of me wants to do this and part of me wants to do that. Okay, well, those two parts live inside of us. Those two parts are actually living beings, you could call them. Inside of us, they have a voice, they have a face, they have a name, they have a personality and a character. And what do they want for us? Ultimately, they have the same highest intention. Part of me wants to do this and part of me wants to do that. Or part of me feels this way and part of me doesn't want to feel this way anymore. Okay, and when you get to the root cause and actual reasoning behind each part, you likely find that they have the same intention. And so when I did parts integration, I remember being mind blown that two parts so completely different inside of me had the same highest intention for myself. And I realized there doesn't have to be this back and forth constant battle. We can find a way to merge those two identities, those two parts together. They serve me to the ultimate fullest that they possibly can, because at the end of the day, that's what they want. A lot of times it comes from protection mechanisms, or it comes from past childhood experience, or being told a certain thing, and those are rooted into us. And so when you have that conversation, whether you're using your hands to do it or not, having that conversation, you can find a common ground. When you find a common ground, you can so much more easily merge those two parts and find a compromise, or find which one is actually serving you and who you want to become. And that is what really dialed it in for me, because it was who I used to be and who I wanted to be. And who I used to be wasn't really doing it on purpose, wasn't trying to sabotage the person that I was being. It was trying to protect. And a lot of times you'll find that a part of you is trying to protect you, and the other part wants expansion. It wants growth. It wants to step fully into the unknown. And so by doing parts integration, I remember having a mind-blowing experience at the beginning of this journey, whereas like I get to choose and I get to merge these together so that they fully serve me, and I get actually where I want to go, and I don't have to keep staying in the same loop, in the same pattern. We would love to hear from you. Go ahead and drop a comment if you've experienced something similar, if you've utilized these tools themselves to your experience. Drop a comment, because we would love to know where you're coming from and if this episode has been insightful for you. And what I learned from all of this was so priceless. I learned that when something sparks your curiosity, follow it. It's your intuition. Your intuition is a compass. Look at it, listen to it, feel it. Be curious enough to take action, because usually there's something behind it. And when you find that curiosity, it's for a reason. You have that gut feeling, you have that intuition for a reason. Take action on it. Even if you're just discovering it by studying or reading or asking people, starting conversations about it. Because a lot of times, opportunity is going to hide behind fear. The things that you are fearful of, look into it. Be curious about it. Because when I got really curious about why I was so comfortable, I started to find reasons why I was meant to expand. Leaders seek discomfort. And I was feeling in that moment, that year specifically of my life, that I was way too comfortable. And a lot of people would say, that's a great problem to have. Don't you want to be comfortable? But there was something inside of me that said, no, this is not the end. There's so much more. Get curious about it, Lacey, and go explore. And I'm so thankful that I did, because in that year of getting curious, I dismantled my entire life, yes. But in the end, I birthed Move with Intention, the movement that you guys get to experience, that I get to live every single day, as well as becoming a master practitioner of Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Who would have ever thought that I would get a chance to do that? I also got an experience with emotional intelligence, and then I deep dove into the studies, into courses, so I could implement that into what we do, because I see it as such a key element. It helped me connect and reconnect to myself, because of years and years of being disconnected, using those different tools, knowing how to actually be in the moment and have that big vision for the future. It helped me connect with myself on a whole new level and become a whole new identity and a whole new woman in itself. And those lessons and many, many more would not have been learned if I would have just stayed in the comfort zone. The comfort zone is a great place to be if you don't want to grow and you don't want to expand. And that's up to everyone's discretion. Everyone gets to choose how they want to show up, what they want to create, who they want to be, and how they want to leave this world. But I know personally from that year, going through those ups and downs, those dark times, when I got curious about my comfort and why I was not learning, being challenged, having new problems, or growing, all of the things started to unfold, because there was a fear behind, okay, I don't know if I want to explore this, but if I do explore it, what could happen. By being in that mindset of what could happen and what if this is for me, changed my entire inner dialogue. And I'm so, so grateful that I took the opportunity to dive into NLP, utilize those techniques like I mentioned, parts integration, and so many more to develop who I am today and what we're growing as a company, because this is only the beginning. This is only the beginning, and I'm so grateful for this journey. Growth often hides behind fear. And in feeling that fear and letting that dictate what you do or what you don't do, you may be missing out on opportunities. I know that year that I decided to take things into my own hands, to stop being a follower, to dive into myself and figure out what's my full potential, what is it that I want to create, who is it that I want to become, and what is my vision, that things started to get really real. And by real, I mean uncomfortable, unknown, but in that space, that's where things happen. That's where change occurs. And in that space is where you get to face yourself. And I know time after time again, I have had to face myself, and that's the evolution. That's how you actually get to progress and evolve and rise up. Because every time that you do face yourself, you're facing your fear. And every time you face your fear, you're giving yourself opportunity to grow, to evolve, and to expand as a human being. And like we said before, when you are connected, I know for myself, being connected to myself, body, mind, and my soul, I'm able to be the best version of me, make the best decisions for my personal life and my professional life, and pour into others because I'm already having a full cup from within. And of course, there's so much more to that story because it was a whole year of my life. But in sharing that today, I hope that it provided you some inspiration, some insights, a little bit on the tools that I have used that have served me so much over the last years, in hopes that they serve you too. I'm really excited for more episodes like this to come out and to keep giving back to the community and sharing these tools because they have been absolutely transformational in my life, and I know that they could be in yours too. If this resonated with you, we'd love to have you part of the community. Go ahead and check out wearemovewithintention.com. You can apply there for one of our programs to see if we can serve you in the best possible way. We would love to hear from you. Go ahead and drop a comment if you've experienced something similar, if you've utilized these tools themselves to your experience. Drop a comment because we would love to know where you're coming from and if this episode has been insightful for you. Go ahead and give us a like and subscribe to the channel to get more on this adventure and this journey, all the tools that we're going to be dropping and sharing. We'd love to have you part of the community.